Just clap your hands unto the Lord and be thankful to Him today. Come on, He's good to us. He's good to us. He's good to us. Amen. Well, welcome to Deeper Life class. Thank you for joining to our live stream this morning. Thank you for being a part of this day. I pray that everything's okay at your house, that the storm didn't get you. But today is, listen, we're gonna let it rain on the inside today. Is that all right? We're gonna let the presence of God just rain down in the house today. And it's gonna be a tremendous time here in the Holy Ghost. Others will be coming shortly. Others will be coming throughout the morning. Listen, let's prepare a place that when someone walks in this house today that needs to leave different than the way they walked in, that God can do what He wants to do. Let's prepare a place today as we worship. Let's give God our very best. And today's going to be a good day in Jesus' name. Is that all right? Clap your hands unto the Lord. Brother Travis is coming this morning. Brother Dykes is going to give us a good word today. Clap your hands and welcome Brother Dykes this morning.
Thank you. Thank you. Man, I will say the weather in Tennessee, I still haven't understood it since I've been here. Like it was in the 70s or 60s, late high 60s the other day. And then today I'm like freezing. I just don't get it. No, but I'm really excited to be speaking to you guys today. I really this topic that we're talking about today is something I feel almost like it's something that's been on my heart for a while, that I've been really, that's really kind of fueled my life for quite a bit of time. But I think it's going to be more of a practical lesson today. So just note that. It's going to probably be like a pastor's Wednesday night. If y'all, who are my Wednesday night people? Wednesday night people, yeah, they come to Wednesday night. Wednesday nights, when pastor's talking, you still know what's gonna happen. But usually, it's always very, very practical. And it's always some of my favorite teaching he does. But yeah, I'm thankful for Pastor and Sister Burden allowing me to speak today. So today we're going to be talking about the blueprint of growth. The blueprint of growth. So one of the first things that when it comes to growth is we need to understand why it's important, okay? Growth it could seem like growth is like, oh, everybody knows the importance of it, why it's important and why you should do it. But I grew up around a lot of people who didn't really understand the importance of growth. And so I want to share some points and different things when it comes to a growth lifestyle. And what I mean by growth is someone who's always consistently trying to grow. And all the things that they're doing in their life. There's a book that I love called Good to Great. It talks about some of the best companies. It researches like using all this data from the best companies, the highest performing companies, not just for like 1 year, but for years and years and years down the road. One of my favorite books. Definitely should read it if you guys are into anything like that. But it talks about like companies like General Motors, Procter & Gamble, Chevron, and how they've just been Fortune 500 companies for years and years and years. And the reason why, and one of the main reasons why that each of these companies continue to be at the top of their game every year is because they have a growth approach to their business. They're always growing. It's never a time where it's just like, oh man, we're good. We're making hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Oh, we don't need any more money. What? That's literally, some people have a limit where they're like, okay, this is the goal that I'm hitting, and I'm just going to stay there, and I don't need to grow anymore. But usually those type of companies are the ones that don't adapt, don't grow past where they're currently at. A great example of that just came to my mind is like Blockbuster. Y'all remember Blockbuster? Blockbuster was like, when I was a kid, that was like the place where we got rented movies, video games, blah, blah, blah. But they couldn't adapt to when Netflix came. They weren't growing. Their whole model had to change, but then they eventually went out of business because they weren't adapting and growing continuously as a business. Now, this is not a business session today, but it's just like I've said before, it's just like my interest because I own my own business. And so I have to research a lot about, business things. But a growth lifestyle, personally, is very, very important. There are three main points of growth that I would say that I've learned over the years. Is when you have a growth lifestyle, what it can do for you is it can cause you to develop purpose. I know for a lot of people, especially working with young people over the years and things like that, purpose is one of those things that seems like a very abstract thing. What is purpose? Purpose, what does that mean when you have purpose? You can find purpose when you live with a growth lifestyle. Many successful business owners say that all businesses do is solve a problem for a customer. That's really the whole thing, which is funny is because when I was in college, they talked about that, but I didn't really understand it until I got into the business world, and I realized, really, that's all it is. It's like, Netflix is solving that for entertainment. Amazon is solving that for delivering products to your door. And examples of that, like Amazon actually started a company to help deliver books. They started Amazon to deliver books. I don't know if any of y'all knew that. That was the original concept of Amazon. And then through their growth process and just growing and all they did, they became the biggest e-commerce store in the world. But that was because they had a mindset of growth. Now, Facebook started as a company for a college campus to connect college students to each other, and eventually became Facebook and a big, huge social media platform now today, because they started in one place, but they kept growing. That was the similarities between these massive businesses. But when it comes to purpose, when it comes to learning and purpose, I was recently watching an podcast interview with this guy who's a businessman, and he made this quote that I thought was really good, and he was talking about how he was raising his kids and different things like that. Of course, right now, that's all I'm studying right now is about kids. Just with the news of us expecting, I was actually already, just to preface, the last time I taught, I didn't know that we were pregnant, but I was already studying, so just so you know that. That's just how me and Caitlin are usually. But he shared this quote that he said that with his kids that because he wants his kids to be entrepreneurs. And so he shared this quote, and I thought it was really good when it comes to finding your purpose. He said he tries to raise his kids to know this: what problems are you uniquely equipped to solve in life? That question is he says that he's been breeding this in his kids for years, and now they're trying to discover what is their unique purpose on earth to solve. Like, what is that problem to solve in their own lives? What am I equipped to solve? As believers, we need to know our purpose with God in the mix. So I took this same idea, the same question, and added God to it. What problems did God uniquely equip you to solve in life? And this question, I feel like, is one that can help you when you're trying to discover what that purpose is. For me, it's been, music. Music has been that purpose in my life. It's been like, okay, I know that God's called me to minister through music. That's my problem that I feel like God's called me to in my life. I think also as I've grown in music, I have learned other aspects of my life, speaking, teaching, different things like that is a big part of my purpose as well. And so this is the reason why growth is so important, is because it evolves over time. Now, the next point, my second point, when it comes to having a growth lifestyle that it helps you in, is you have direction. You have direction. Finding direction in your life or ministry doesn't happen when you are complacent. The people who are consistently moving towards something will start to discover direction. But you have to be moving in a direction to know if you're going the wrong way or the right way. And the reason why I say that is anytime somebody's ever, asked me about, okay, well, how do I know I'm going in the right direction? Are you moving? That's the first question I ask. Are you moving? What are you doing? Are you just sitting there waiting, planning, but you're not taking any action? You're not, actually moving in any direction? I always, especially in ministry, I always think, even if you're not a person who's going to join the music team or someone who's great at sound or someone who's great at speaking, there's a purpose. You can develop and find your direction just by joining any ministry. There's always something to be done. You can, get a broom, sweep. Everybody can clean, I remember one of the first times I was on staff at a church, the pastor really helped me understand ministry because I remember one time we were setting up for a meeting. It was all hands on deck. And we were setting up tables, sweeping floors, mopping, doing all this kind of stuff. And I remember he told us when I was an intern at the time, and they told me, it was this is ministry. Ministry is whatever needs to be done for the kingdom of God. And I think when it comes to having this as learning your direction is that when you get started into it, even if it doesn't become your thing, it becomes your purpose. Like me, music was the thing that led me down this, playing bass at my church was what led me down to music. But if I never started just serving, I would have never knew my direction. People who are consistently growing are never sitting still, but are always involved. Doing the bare minimum is not growth, okay? And I know this could be very challenging, but this is the reality. This is the thing what I love about teaching is that, knowledge doesn't really care about your feelings because it's really trying to help you. It's really trying to help you grow somewhere. So doing the bare minimum is never going to get you anywhere. Doing the bare minimum in my walk with God does not prove that my relationship is growing. And so if I'm not praying, if I'm not consistently reading the Word, if I'm not seeking God and having faith in the things that I'm doing, then do you think my relationship is growing with God? I don't think so. If I'm not consistently pursuing, challenging my faith, challenging the things that I'm doing, no matter how long I've been serving God, am I growing or am I just being complacent? If I consistently stay at the bare minimum, I'm never growing. But if I continue to challenge myself, I am. If you do the bare minimum at work, this is more practical. If you do the bare minimum at work, do you think you're going to get a promotion? No, of course not. Because honestly, for me, actually hiring people for my business, I realized, oh, wow, bare minimum. I know people who do the bare minimum. I'm like, man, how do you still have a job? You know what I'm saying? And that's just kind of the whole idea is that's not even spiritual. That's just practical, And that's the part of the reason why it's so important to not just do the bare minimum. Some people are afraid of growth because they are afraid that it's going to show that they're doing something wrong. And I think that's why growth is so important, is because if you start growing, you can start knowing if you're going in the wrong direction a lot faster. You can start moving in a direction and realize, I don't actually think this is what I need to be doing, because you have a growth lifestyle. Now, the last point of having a growth lifestyle, what it could do for you, is you can make the right decisions. When you have a direction or vision for your life, then you have some semblance of where you're going. For example, let's just say somebody was like, hey, I want to meet you at this new restaurant near Nissan Stadium. We all know, most of us probably know where Nissan Stadium is in downtown. If somebody told me that, if I were to leave here to go to that restaurant today, I wouldn't have to necessarily pull up my map, because I know, you can take Gallatin or you can take 65. There's so many different directions to get to downtown. But once I get to downtown and get off the exit at Nissan Stadium, then that'll probably be where I need some kind of direction after that. But if we don't have a vision for where we're going, it's hard to get that 85% of the way. So I can get there 85% of the way just by knowing the general location of where I'm going. So when you now have the direction God has for your life, then you can easily determine what is wrong and right decisions for your life. I say that to say it's like whenever with this example, you can get there. I didn't have to pull up my map to get 85% of the way, but because I know the direction and the general vicinity of where I'm going, I know what decisions I need to make to get at least 80 to 85% there. All the other ones, God can be handled when I get closer. But the thing is that this is the reason why vision is important in having a growth lifestyle, because now I can make those decisions a lot easier. Now, the next part of this is pretty much going to be my attributes when it comes to growth. These are going to be things that I was sitting praying, trying to figure out, because I felt this tug of like, okay, I want to talk about growth. Growth is something, it's very practical. But there's attributes and things in a direction of growth that helps you to have consistent growth in your life. And one of the first things, and these are going to be different attributes, is mindset. Mindset is the first thing you have to change to grow. Fixed versus growth mindset is a concept that was derived from a psychologist named Carol Dweck. She's a psychologist and researcher who introduced this idea of fixed and growth mindsets to explain how people perceive their abilities and potential. So a fixed mindset is the belief that abilities, intelligence, and talents are static and cannot be changed. People with this mindset tend to think, I'm either good at something or I'm not. Failure defines me. If I struggle, it means I'm not talented. Effort is pointless if I don't succeed quickly. I avoid challenges because I don't want to look bad. And so a fixed mindset really is those type of people, they're pretty much stuck in their ways. That's a great example of that. My mindset is so fixed that I can never live past this moment that I'm currently in. And that's what she defines as a fixed mindset. The consequences of a fixed mindset are fear of failure, which prevents growth, avoidance of challenges and risk, giving up easily when faced with difficulties, seeking validation rather than learning, feeling threatened by others' success. These are the consequences of it. And this is the reason why I think this study is so powerful, because you start to see, like, do I have a fixed mindset in my life, or do I have a growth mindset? Because this is, when I see this fixed mindset, I'm like, wow, I've been there before. I've been there where I'm like, yeah, I don't want anything to change because everything feels really good right now. There's no problems happening, but that is having a fixed mindset. Now, on the other side of that, we have the growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort, learning, and perseverance. People with this mindset tend to think, I can improve with practice, challenges help me grow, failure is a learning opportunity, effort and persistence lead to success, and I can learn from feedback and the success of others. Now, some of the benefits from this is willingness to take on challenges and learn from them, resilience in the face of obstacles, increased motivation and persistence, emphasis on effort over innate talent, openness to feedback, and constructive criticism. Now, this is the mindset. You can obviously tell looking at the attributes of the growth mindset. This person who's thinking like this is growing all the time, consistently. They're not getting stuck in their own ways because they're seeking challenges. They're seeking failure. They're seeking and putting forth consistent effort and growing. And I think one thing that I didn't include on here that's really important is that you are open to growth, okay? Because I think sometimes, I grew up in Alabama, and I feel like I always tell Caitlin this now that I'm older. When I go to Alabama, I always feel like a spirit of like complacency when I go to Alabama. I don't know why. That's just like, something spiritually that I feel every time I go there. Because I feel like a lot of people in Alabama that I knew growing up they just wanted to have, the 9-to-5 lifestyle, have a good retirement, and just chill throughout their life. They didn't want to have any challenges. They just wanted to have a good job, just do their thing, which I get it. I get it. But for me, I feel like that's something as Christians and believers, we always have to push away if we're going to grow with God. We have to push away that kind of mindset that, okay, we just get to a good place with God and we're just going to chill. We're just going to, oh, yeah, I go to church. I'm on time for church every Sunday. That's good. Which that's a step. That's a step. But it's about more than just showing up for church. It's about actually having a growth lifestyle when it comes to your relationship with God. Now, when it comes to a fixed mindset, a great example of this in the Bible would be the Pharisees' mindset towards Jesus. Whenever Jesus was manifested in the flesh and he was walking on earth, the Pharisees, if you know the story, were limited to rules and regulations instead of having a growing relationship with God that's so strong that they knew that it was God based on their relationship. And the thing is that the Pharisees, when Jesus was walking through the earth, doing all these miracles and things, they could not see past the laws that were placed. They couldn't see past their knowledge. Their mindset was fixed of like, okay, this can't ever change. And that was the issue that they had. They had a fixed mindset towards God, and eventually led them into this, trying to disprove God the entire time he was here on earth. And it's just crazy to think about that. And it's crazy to see that a fixed mindset is literally in the Bible. There's so many examples of it. This is just one small example. But the thing is that when you have a fixed mindset, it really hurts. It really, really hurts being open to growth. And I think that's the reason why for the Pharisees not having an open mindset hurt them a lot. But on the flip side of that, the disciples had a growth mindset. The disciples had a growth mindset towards Jesus. When Jesus called each of them, they did not know everything that they needed to know to be a disciple, but they could recognize that he was the Messiah based on their encounter with him. So whenever, Jesus called the disciples, I'm sure most of you know the story, God called them. They were doing something that wasn't, being a disciple. They weren't teaching necessarily in, the synagogues or doing anything that a priest would do, but they just were kind of the normal worker being a fisherman. It says in the story of the disciples, when God called them, he told them, he's like, right now you're fishers, but I'm going to make you fishers of men. And that was a huge change in their mindset when it comes to growth. It's like they didn't know. And this is how you know, because the evidence is there. They didn't know what they were about to walk into. There were no disciples at the time for Jesus or anything like that, but they had the mindset enough to know that I can step into this role and I can learn, I can grow, I can, push forward in this, even though I have no idea what it's going to happen with it. In Proverbs 23:7, it says, "For as he thinks in his heart, so is he." If we think with a fixed mindset, we will always be limited to that mindset. And to sum up these mindsets, I have 2 lines that help sum up this. A fixed mindset is complacent. A growth mindset is moving. And so if you can always remember that, a fixed mindset is complacent, a growth mindset is moving, that will always help you to know the definition of these mindsets and which one you want to have if you want to have growth in your life. Now, the next part of mindset that's really, really important, I've been reading this book called Atomic Habits. Have any of y'all heard of Atomic Habits? Yeah. Great book. I still haven't even finished it, but it's been just wrecking my world. But it's such a great book. But it talks about this when it comes to behavioral change, because a part of growth is behaviors. How are we behaving? What are we doing in our lives to change? So the three levels of behavioral change is outcomes, processes, and identity. To sum up these, outcomes are what you get, about what you get. Processes are about what you do. And identity is about what you believe. So with outcomes, it's completely based on the outcome of what you want to see happen. So like, for example, this is the reason why we make goals, such as working out. Like working out, some people have the goal of like, I want to see a six-pack. You know, I want to have a six-pack, and that's the outcome that they want to happen. And so what that does is that it pushes your behavior and encourages, motivates you to want to get a six-pack. Okay, that's the outcome, okay? Which, I mean, man, I don't think that's ever happened for me, but you know, that's the reason why I don't necessarily live off of outcomes. No. But another one is like losing weight so you can fit into your clothes from high school. That's never going to happen for me. I grew really fast. But for some people, that is your reason for losing weight. You know, you're losing weight because you're trying to fit into clothes. Some clothes. I know some people keep like clothes that they can't fit because they're like, oh, I'm going to fit back into them someday. You know, that's an outcome. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. Hopefully, just it's okay. It's okay. But that is pretty much what outcome behavioral change is. Now, the next level of this, which is processes. Processes is where you change your processes to achieve your goals, such as taking a new routine at the gym that challenges you more. Now, I do some working out and stuff like that at home, but every time, like at the first, I was like, all right, I got to go at the beginner level. Okay, I got to get used to the beginner level because the beginner level is killing me right now. It's challenging me. But after I started that workout routine at that beginner level, then I'm like, okay, this is starting to become, I'm not feeling challenged by this. I need to up my weight. I need to up my reps. This is how processes help you achieve things and how that behavior helps you, because now your process is consistently growing and challenging you in your behavior. A couple of other ideas of this is like decluttering your desk to have better workflow, or waking up by a certain time so you can get more done in a day. I will say that waking up for a certain time really affected me in my life. I used to be really bad workaholic. You could ask Caitlin. I used to be a very bad workaholic, and I would stay up. This is before we were married. I would stay up until like 4 a.m. just working, doing stuff or whatever, because I was just so, motivated to do music, get better at music, and do all these different things. And so I would just do that all the time. And then I remember whenever we were getting ready to get engaged, I was about to, propose to Caitlin. I started, thinking about the life that I wanted to have as a father. And I was like, do you want to be the father that is always working and never spending time with your family? Or do you want to be a father who's going to be there with your family? And so I remember that happened for me. That thought came to me, and it changed my process of, waking up in the morning. And now I started waking up earlier. At that time, I was probably waking up around noon. That's so young. But I was waking up around noon, and then I started slowly pushing it back to where now I think I wake up around 7 or so in the morning. And then I had a stopping point for my work in the day. I started, stopping by like 6 p.m. or 7. And then when we got married, I just continued on with that process. And it's really changed my life. But because of that, it helped me to change to be the person that I wanted to be in the future. Now, and the last part of this is identity, which is kind of, leads you to this. That story leads you to this. This is the third and deepest and most effective layer of change. This level is concerned with changing your beliefs, your worldview, your image, and judgment about yourself and others. With outcome-based habits, the focus is on what you want to achieve. With identity-based habits, the focus is on who you wish to become. The ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. It's one thing to say that I'm a type of person who wants this. It's something very different to say I'm the type of person who is this. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with one is because it becomes a part of your identity. Improvements are only temporary until they become part of who you are. And so this means that if you consider this behavioral change of who you are, then your behavior and your identity are fully aligned. You are no longer pursuing behavior change. You are simply acting like the type of person you already believe yourself to be. Examples of this, the book actually offered this example which really helped me. It says, imagine two people resisting a cigarette when offered a smoke. The first person says, no thanks, I'm trying to quit. It sounds like a reasonable response, right? But this person still believes they are a smoker who is trying to be something else. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. The second person declines by saying, no thanks, I'm not a smoker. It's a small difference, but this statement signals a shift in identity. Smoking was a part of their former life, not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who smokes. When I read this, I was like, wow, that's crazy, because that really is the key. Whatever, for me, with, like I said, looking at myself as a father in the future, I was like, oh, I don't want that to be my identity. I didn't want my identity to be the father who was never there. I didn't want my identity to be the father who puts his work over his family. And so because of that, I changed my identity to I'm not that. I'm going to be this father instead of that father. And so that is the power of identity. And what's crazy is that I've never had, ever since I did that, I have not had any issues, waking up early in the morning. Now, of course, if you're tired, that's one thing. But I've consistently gotten up early. You can ask Caitlin. I definitely haven't went back from that. But this is the power of identity change. Now, I've even actually seen this in my own family. My dad, when he got a promotion to be a manager, I remember seeing him. He started dressing up for work. He started getting more haircuts. He started getting in even earlier. And I remember seeing that. I didn't realize how much that affected me, but that was my dad changing his beliefs. Is like, hey, I'm a boss now. I'm a supervisor. I can't just go in being a slouch. I've got to go in and I've got actually have to step into this role that I'm taking. Now, to go back to the idea and the thought biblically of when God was calling the disciples, God shows this in the Bible when it comes to identity, which is actually really incredible when I was doing studying on this. In Matthew 4:18 and 19, going back to when he was calling his first disciples, it says, and Jesus, walking by the Sea of Galilee, saw two brethren, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And he saith unto them, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. Jesus, in this passage, is showing how these disciples had an identity, but that identity changed. I really feel like this is like God showing us in this and confirming this whole, identity mindset when it comes to behavioral change. When you change your behavior, it has to be something you believe. It has to be something that you're just like, okay, this is a part of who I am. These disciples were identified as fishermen. They were fishing. They were identified by this job, but then immediately they walked away from that, and God made them fishers of men. Completely different. But that's the reason why they were able to adapt into the roles that they became, being disciples of Jesus. Now, the next attribute of growth, and this is very, very important, and I think this is the part that I would say a lot of us have struggles in, and it's action. Without action, we have to act on the knowledge. We have to know that we have to, sorry, I think my notes are a little wrong in here. Without action, we never know and we never learn and find wisdom. We never find wisdom. Knowledge is important. We have knowledge. I think at today's day and age, we have so much knowledge at our fingertips. I know back in the day, my parents used to have to to find a phone number, even have to get a Yellow Pages, book. How many of y'all remember Yellow Pages? Yeah. Okay. This section they don't really know about that. But Yellow Pages was how you found numbers instead of just going online and searching for it. And different things like that. Even if you're trying to find any kind of knowledge, you go to the library, find books, do all these things. You have to do all this work to find knowledge. And so right now, we're in a day and age where knowledge is so easily accessible. But the issue and the separation between those who are actually intelligent and those who just have knowledge is action. It's because people who act on the knowledge that they have actually gain wisdom. Because there's so many things. I mean, I wasn't feeling too great last night, and I started looking up online my symptoms and things like that, and it was just they give all these things. Oh, this could be cancer. This could be cancer. This could be cancer. Even though I just had an upset stomach, it wasn't even anything big. My stomach was just upset. But there's so much knowledge out there. But that's the reason why doctors, when you look on WebMD or anything like that, it's always just go see your doctor. Because they actually have acted on the knowledge. Because if you just looked at that, everything leads to some kind of debilitating disease, And so that's the reason why action is important in that sense. I've had many friends that are musicians that have way more knowledge than me when it comes to music. Man, there's so many people. They're way better at music theory, teaching, and different things like that than I am. But I will say the one thing that I notice in a lot of those people, and the reason why they struggle a lot, is because they can talk about the theory, they can talk about all the different things, but they can never play what they teach. And because of that, it's because they don't have any action in their life. They don't have any action when it comes to this theory. That's the reason why action is a huge barrier to people to gaining wisdom and experience. There's even friends that I know that I grew up with that have incredible amounts of knowledge, insane amounts of knowledge. But when you look at our lives, and not to compare and be, oh, my life is so much better. But the thing is that when you compare our lives, they're still at the same place they've been since we were teenagers. They're still working the same job. They still, having the same issues in their life. Even though they have knowledge to solve the problem, they just won't take any action to solve it. The reason why this is because they are scared to take action. Knowledge without action is self-serving. Knowledge without action is like theory without practice. It says in 1 Corinthians 8:1, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. James says that one who hears the word but does not do it deceives himself. James 1:22. And what this is showing is that even in the Bible, it shows you that there has to be an action paired with the knowledge for growth to happen. If you don't have knowledge, or if you don't have action with your knowledge that you have in your life, you will never get experience. You'll never actually be able to trim the fat this is what's really needed. This is what I really need. It's not all these other things that knowledge told me that I need. I took this and I was able to filter it and try these things and realize what's the best thing for my life and what's going to help me grow. That's the reason why knowledge is so important when it comes to growth. Now, the next part of this, which is part actually where I started with on this lesson, was your environment. Okay, so I'm going through a progression of we had our mindset, all the things that come with mindset. Action is the next thing. Now, what influences our actions is environment. Your environment can promote wisdom or promote foolishness. Who you surround yourself by matters. There's so many. I was looking up different like scientific ideas and experiments. Y'all know me. I like those kind of the data. The data is so much fun. But I'm just going to give like cliff notes of one. It's called the Pygmalion effect, where researchers told certain students, told teachers to tell certain students that they were gifted, even though they were chosen at random. This is them coming to a classroom, and they're just like, "Hey, man, you're gifted," but they wouldn't tell like the other five, and then they work to the next one. And hey, you're gifted, and that's pretty much how the experiment went. What they noticed when they did this test, when they were doing this, is that they give them tests and they, gave them these different academic challenges and tests, or I guess, test is the best way, exams. And they noticed a huge improvement for those who were told that they were gifted, even though there was no data behind it. It was just like, hey, I'm just going to tell you that you're gifted. And they noticed an insane amount of growth when it comes to their improvement, largely because their teachers just treated them with higher expectations. And that is really a great example of how powerful environments are. Now, a few environments that I think bringing this down to us, that we have to always be careful of is first our social environments, who we choose to spend our time with. I'm sure you guys heard we are the average of our 5 closest friends. And so who those 5 closest people that you choose to spend your time with will kind of show what behaviors are going to be happening in your own life. If you're around a bunch of negative people that always talk bad about people, the likelihood that you're going to talk bad about somebody is a lot higher, a lot higher. If you're around people who are always doing good things for people, the amount of times that you're going to do good things for people is going to be a lot higher, just because you're surrounded by that social environment. Now, the next one is our physical environments. What physical location we choose to spend our time. If we're always in locations that are going against where we want to go, like where we're growing towards. So like if you're someone who's coming from, being an alcoholic, staying and hanging out in a bar is probably not the best place to be, if that's what you're trying to not do. And so your physical environments can influence that, because if I'm always hanging out there, everybody's doing the same thing but me. That's going to encourage me to go backwards in my growth. So you have to be careful in your physical environments. Now, our emotional environments is the next one, is what we choose to consume. This is probably one that I always have to be careful of, because, with all the different, ways of consuming entertainment and things like that, you always have to be careful that you're not consuming things that are going to make you go backwards. You need to always be challenging yourself with a better emotional environment. If you're always consuming horror movies or horror entertainment or bad things, it will eventually affect you. It'll eventually affect your behavior, because for me, I remember I've gotten a lot more sensitive to this over the years, but just like, I could never watch any type of show that had any kind of like marital affair or anything like that. I don't know what it was, but it wrecked my world. Anytime I would watch something that had like, oh man, this person had an affair with somebody, I remember that was like one of my first steps of like, all right, I've got to cut this out. I can't watch things like this. Because it was affecting my emotional, behavior in my environment. It's not that I had any issues with, having an affair or anything, but it was like, Caitlin could tell you, like anytime I see that, I'm always just like, I can't, it affects me in a way that I don't like it. And I have to push it out. And that's the way that we need to be with our environments. There are 2 types of environments we have to be careful of: negative environments and positive environments. And like I said at the beginning, knowing what vision you have for your life, where you're going, your goals, what you want to become in your life will help you determine what's a negative and positive environment. And so, like, if I know that I want to be, let's say I wanted to be a pastor or something like that, I know God's called me to do that. that would mean that negative environments would be anything that would hurt my reputation in that. So like if I know that I'm supposed to be a pastor, then I probably shouldn't be hanging out in bars. I mean, how many of y'all would like be like, oh yeah, I saw a pastor at the bar last week. That was cool. Like, no, that's probably not where you want to see pastor. That is a negative environment because it's hurting his reputation as a spiritual leader. Now, the positive environments is a great example as well. It's like, okay, now if I know that sticking with this whole pastor thing, going to church conferences, learning more about the Bible, going to do those kind of things, those are environments that I want to be in. Connecting with other pastors and other people in the area and trying to create friendships and relationships, that's where you want to be that's a positive environment when it comes to that. Now, the last part of this and the last attribute is resistance. Resistance is the result of growth, okay? This is probably the part that people shy away from, and the reason why growth is always so nerve-wracking and scary, because sometimes you think whenever you're starting to grow, everything's going to be just, sunshine and roses, everything's going to be great, it's just going to be amazing. But actually, the result of growth is conflict, because the thing is that it's just like working out in the gym. If you're going to grow in muscle growth, you've got to have some weight you're lifting. You know what I'm saying? If I'm lifting no weight, then I'm not going to have any growth. But the thing is, when you start lifting, you start noticing a little burn, a little pain in your arms or in your legs. And the thing is that when you do that, it may burn a little bit and it may cause some tension, but it heals back stronger. That's the reason why resistance is so important. If you're going to have a growth lifestyle, we need to make sure we get comfortable with resistance. If you are not around people who challenge you, it will be hard for you to grow. Because honestly, that is, if I didn't have people I will say, Caitlin's of course, my best friend, but she challenges me in a lot of things. But there's also other people in my life, I have a friend named Daniel. He just became a pastor, challenges me. I have another friend who is a leader in his industry, and he challenges me all the time with just thoughts and ideas and his actions and the way he approaches things. And that's the reason why, if you wanted to have anything from this lesson that you can go back with, is always have a challenge. Because resistance, that's what you need to grow. If you don't have any resistance in your life, then you're probably not growing. I'll be honest with you. If there's no resistance, I used to think, oh man, when my finances are perfect, then I don't have to worry about that. Well, then you got new things coming up. If you're growing, it's going to be okay, my finances, I'm not really worried about that, but okay, how are you choosing to spend that money? How are you choosing to use that money? How are you using the time that you have now? There's other things that can come up and other things that will happen when you are growing, but you have to always be challenged. And so I was actually talking to the music team, and I was telling them about ways that you can identify where you need to grow. And one of the things I was saying is that insecurity determines where you need to grow. If you feel uncomfortable in a place, I used to be uncomfortable playing bass. I used to be uncomfortable reading music, but now I'm a lot more comfortable with it because I grew in that area now. I used to be uncomfortable with speaking in front of people, but I pushed myself in the place where I felt insecure. And that caused me to have confidence in it, and now I'm not insecure in it anymore. That if you're wanting to try to find a place where you need to grow, look at your insecurities. Your amount of comfortability with change will determine your growth. Now, the whole purpose of this lesson is because I want you to know the different aspects and different things the attributes of what it takes to grow. And all of these things should lead you, and this should be like a circle, to this. Actually, it should be, you should expect this in everything that you're doing. It's like, okay, I got to have the right mindset towards it. I got to have the right action. I've got to be in the right environment, and I have to expect resistance to happen. If you approach anything in your life, when you approach your life spiritually, your walk with God, it's like, okay, all right, I'm going to make this goal for myself, and I'm going to pray 30 minutes a day. Okay, cool. There's going to be days where, you're going to have that resistance where it's like, oh, I'm so tired, I don't want to get up. But that's resistance. There's resistance, an example of resistance. So when you go through all of these attributes, what this lesson's supposed to help you with is to identify what's coming up next. Okay, what's going to happen next in your growth journey. If you live a life of growth, your life will always be elevated. Growth is not just about outcomes, but about your processes. We need to have a life of growth in our personal life and our spiritual life because they influence each other. We have